Okay, so this is day 91 of being housed. It is Friday, November the 14th, 2025. And I was able to reserve this wonderful resource, the Quiet Pod. And so I'm blessed to have the opportunity to talk about the abuse that took place this week on Tuesday. So that's in conjunction with the audio recording that I had, an audio recording that I still haven't listened to. I find these things they're very hurtful. They're things I find when there's abuse and there's attacks, the natural we there are natural proclivity is to escape these things or just to avoid these things or to want to be removed from them, not just physically but also like to separate ourselves from them even in our thoughts. But I find there's a lot of wonderful things to learn from these things and in these situations. And I find like one of the main things too with these conversations is to and one of the blessings that we have is we have like a sample selection. So once again, it's day 91 of being housed, and so a 91-day sample selection that reveals the patterns that have occurred, and yeah, so I think this is wonderful to delve into and to discuss, to have a candid conversation in an effort to not to attack any people, but to just to see things the way they are, to see them the way they are in their actuality. But also, I'm offering this to reveal to each and every one of you. This is me. I'm going through these things, and I'll just be as honest and transparent as I can be with each and every one of you. And this might provide some insight into, why others who go through these things may perhaps like why they might choose a different direction, or like I might identify or speak about things that they have gone through, but they haven't identified and they haven't talked about. So it can provide virtually, in essence, it can provide a voice for the voiceless. It can bring forth things that often occur um, in the confines of darkness or in the secrecy that occurs or exists behind closed doors. So then these things can be brought from the darkness into the light, or light can be shone on these things, so we can see them in greater depths of actuality for what they are, and the things that are done in secret can be exposed for all to see, and so then these things can be talked about, and most importantly just acknowledged, and not just swept under the rug. So um the first thing I want to say is it's very difficult for me to get these things out. I'm unsure of what it might seem like from your perspective, or from the viewing or listening audience's perspective, because I can only see things through my own perspective. And in all honesty, I haven't talked about these things to anybody else. So these things are they've just been candidly and transparently shared only on this platform and in these videos. So I haven't received any feedback from any individuals or any people. Um, oh, sorry. I guess I did. I talked about, but I haven't talked about these things specifically. Or say, I talked in general earlier this week. And so anyway, so I guess that's the natural segue to this is earlier this week at my Bible study. So this would be the day that the two threats came in. I mentioned to one of the men at my Bible study that I was threatened twice. I said, has this ever happened to you?" And so I've known this young man, oh goodness, uh, since he was 16, and I used to coach his soccer team. I'm just a little bit older than he is. I think I was 19 when I coached the soccer team, and he was 16. So there's probably 5 years between us. And this young man, I've known him since we were kids, and he is a man of integrity. He's got an amazing, like, very hard work ethic. He's a man of his word. He's exceedingly well liked. I found like in high school, like he was one of the students that was well liked by many folks because he was just a man of character. He did very well academically, but he's a really good when it comes to sports. He has a very hard work ethic, and he's very devoted, but he's just a very talented individual. Um, and so, anyways, when I talk with him, I just mentioned, have you ever been threatened? And he looked at me and he had eyes of concern. And I think in his mind, he was probably thinking, "Oh my goodness, like I can't believe anybody would threaten you." And he said, "No, no, I've never been threatened. Like nobody's actually ever like blatantly threatened me." Um, and so this is not abnormal or new to me. However, once upon a time, this was new to me, and I'm going to explain why. So in the past, so I had been exposed to extreme abuse. Oh goodness, since I was quite young, and um, goodness, I've always just desired love. I just desire peace. Oh goodness, and I just desire the truth. And I remember after I had an encounter with Jesus, it was like I entered into a different domain and I realized, oh my goodness, it's like I've been um, living a life while being asleep. I've just been going with the flow and just saying things to be agreeable and, you know, um, like assessing everything for the minimal consequences and just playing, like not living the life that like it's like I knew there was a potential hidden deep inside of me, and it was like I was going the opposite direction of that potential because I just it was like I didn't know how to live properly. And so I started examining the things that were around me and doing a very deep dive into, why am I saying this? Why am I doing this? Uh, I say I won't bow down to intimidation, but this person's purposefully trying to intimidate me, and I'm bowing down to it. But I just changed that label in my mind to appease myself, so I don't feel like there's hypocrisy in my thoughts. So I realized, oh goodness, I'm living a lie virtually. Very hard to admit, and even harder to admit that at whatever age you're at, I had the emotional maturation of, or say, somebody who who was like one third my age. And I remember I started talking transparently. It was very difficult for me to talk transparently back then. And I remember asking somebody that I trusted, somebody that I seen was very loving and gentle, um, to their child. And I asked them if they would ever do something, like say something that was abusive. And like they looked at me like I had three heads and they said, no, no, absolutely not. Like, why would you ask that question? And I almost doubled over. I like we were walking. I literally it was like all of the breath got knocked out of me and I almost fell on the ground. And I'm not over exaggerating. I'm being completely honest. It was like the reality I was living in clashed with a truth that I had always been, um, aware of, but not facing. And it occurred to me, oh my goodness, I have been abused, but I had also been abusing other people too. And this is not normal. However, I had seemed to um, develop really strong bonds of friendship with people who also had been abused. So then it became our norm. And so when I was talking with this wonderful young man on Tuesday, it's just that that reality was risen to the surface, but it's no longer novel to me. It's no longer a shock to me. I now understand. Oh, my reality is much different than other people's realities, and these things like the abuse that used to be the norm in my life, it's actually not the norm. Like these occasions. Like with the owner's mother, the last place I was at, there was a lot of abuse there too. Oh goodness, there's a lot of abuse everywhere. in our society. But I find when I'm like living on my own, I had about 10 years living on my own, um, and um, and I wasn't subject to any abuse. So then I was able to heal. Oh my goodness! And so now my norm, or the reality that I consider normal, is flip opposite than the reality that I considered normal growing up. So it was so anyway. So there's so much hope there, but um, so that was brought up to this young man, and it was um, in his response, like in the past. So I'll be completely transparent. In the past, I probably wouldn't have brought these things up for many different reasons. One of the main reasons, though, like to this young man, I probably wouldn't have brought it up because I wanted to have kept an image. You know, I would have been looked upon as like the cooler kid. Like I was when I was younger, I was dating the woman that I was dating, like him and his friends were kind of goo goo gaga for, and I was like the older kid that which was teaching them, or say soccer and this and that, and so it's just an image that I was trying to live up to. And so to admit that people picked on me behind closed doors, or to admit that somebody was cruel to me, or somebody did this or that, I would have felt that that would have made me vulnerable, because that would have went against, an image that I had. And so I cared more about the image than I did about the existence of what was occurring with me, and the actuality of what was occurring around me. And so that is one of the main reasons why I wouldn't have spoke about it. Another main reason why I wouldn't have spoke about it is I had this attitude of I'm okay, I'm fine, and that was a lie, because the truth was I wasn't okay. I wasn't fine. I didn't feel safe, but I felt that it was a betrayal to strength to mention any vulnerabilities. And now I realize there's so much power in in making yourself vulnerable, because then there's like the core issue is actually being exposed. And in anything in life, the only way to fix something, to fix a problem, is you first have to acknowledge that that problem exists. You first have to acknowledge that there's an issue occurring. If you don't acknowledge it first, you will never be able to fix it, because it will just always be swept under the rug. There's actually strength in that. And then you can take your weaknesses, you strengthen your weaknesses, then they become your strengths. And you know, it's quite wonderful. Trying to think if there's any other reasons I can remember. I want to purge as much as possible to provide as much pertinent and relevant information as possible, just to help. Um, oh, another reason why I wouldn't have shared is because I was always busy. I was always hanging around with guys that I had acceptance with, and we're always, unfortunately, before Jesus, I was unfortunately I was a womanizer. I really was, and you know I was broken inside, and so part of having confidence, or what I deemed as confidence back then, was to you know um, be in a relationship. I had a perspective that if you weren't in a relationship, it meant there was something wrong with you, or it could lead, or it could mean that there was something wrong with you. And to be in a relationship was my goal, what I thought was my goal. When in reality, I desired love. I desired love in its fullness. I desired unconditional love, but I wasn't seeking unconditional love, because to seek unconditional love, you have to seek to be whole and complete, and then to be an equal part of that which you desire. Because if you're with somebody who's not whole and they're not complete, it's easy with just a cursory examination that they're just going to be using you and your relationship to fill a void that you and that relationship can't fill. And then when it seems like they could lose you, or it seems like things aren't working out, they can fall back into that state of desperation that they were in when they met you, and then they can find another person who in another relationship to fill that void. that a person in a relationship cannot fill. So it's a cycle, and once you're able to see it, you no longer have the excuse of ignorance, and you're going to feel convicted, and you have to deal with those convictions because you realize that you're not living life right. You're not living life in accordance to the things that you know and you understand. And so there's a lot of accountability that comes with knowledge and understanding and insight. And so anyway, so because I was always running to those things, it's similar to somebody wearing different clothes. You can have all these different scars or these different wounds that need to be tended to, but then you can hide them under different attire, and then you just go to like this meeting, and you go to that meeting, you go to that function, you go to that function, and it's easy just to get caught up in the dialogue of the day, and 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 then just to be distracted from the pain that's existing beneath the attire. But then when you lay down at bed or at night, or you look at yourself naked in the mirror, you realize, oh goodness, these wounds are here. And that would be like where those like sudden glimpses of reality or actuality would hit, and you're faced with this reality that things aren't the way they truly seem to be. But I never really knew how to deal with them or to handle them, or that there was hope outside of what I was doing. So then I would just wake up, put on my game face, put on my attire, and then go and do the same thing over and over again. So then patterns would occur in my life. Patterns would repeat over and over again, and I felt like I was kind of like a mouse running or a hamster running on one of those stationary wheels, exerting a lot of energy but going absolutely nowhere. And so anyways, so those would be the main reasons why I didn't talk about abuse. Um, Another reason would be I seem to be able to justify, like if I was angry at somebody, I would get flushed with emotion, and that emotion would have dominion over me. It would dominate me, and then I would act in those emotions, and then afterwards I'd feel a semblance or I'd feel a little bit of guilt or remorse. But then I could I'd look for ways to justify it. Well, if I had to do this, otherwise they would have done that, or you don't understand what's been done to me in the past, or all these different things. So I had all these justifications, but I didn't actually call them justifications. And I surrounded myself with individuals that would justify, my poor behavior, which enabled me to continue that poor behavior without having to face or always face consequences, but without having to acknowledge that there's consequences to face. And then substance abuse and just any addictions, and all addictions seem to flow from that channel. So they flowed from a state of brokenness and incompleteness um, and denial, virtually, in like the depths of despair. And so anyhow, so um, yeah, so those are so I think this is it's wonderful to talk about. I'm very very happy to be able to share this, and I think I'll do another one on regarding the we'll say with the owner's mother, and just in this most recent onslaught. There's a few things of note that'll be really wise to talk about. And without further ado, I think I'm going to do another video, and we'll talk about that. And so I'm excited to have the opportunity to speak about it, and also to note that right now I have like this quiet pod. I can talk about these things transparently. Back where I'm currently staying, I wouldn't be able to talk about these things for obvious reasons. The owner's room is right beside mine, and then, if I'm out in public, I wouldn't be able to talk about these things. So um, this adds a little bit of insight into why these things might not be talked about after they freshly occurred, or in that threshold where it's still fresh, or reasonably fresh. And anyhow, I'm going to conclude this one, and I'll start another one.